Now, there's no denying the fact that Lucasfilm has been going through a lot of hurdles this past couple of months with the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, as well as a handful of other problematic situations that have actually risen, and is causing a lot more trouble on the Disney higher-ups, aka the Disney board members, dealing with all of this, from point A to point B of developing each of those shows led by Kathleen Kennedy. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, one thing about the overall structure of this new universe that's being formed by John, George, and Dave is that it's going to greatly differ in comparison to what Kathleen Kennedy is doing with her small-scale take on the Star Wars universe, with Skeleton Crew and the Acolyte. Now, looking at, of course, everything that has been going on with the Acolyte series, it's been a problem after problem after problem, and just setback after setback, dealing with tons of issues when it comes to the budget, when it comes to set designs, when it comes to the crew. All these different aspects have been a troublesome experience for Lucasfilm as a whole. Now, with that being said and all, what's even all the more intriguing has a lot to do with exactly what's been going on behind the scenes for the Acolyte series and why there's a lot of bad news surrounding the show when it comes to the production. Now, we're only midway through filming for the Acolyte so far. They started back, I believe it was in December, and they're getting through, of course, this month of February. There's been a lot of delays on and off. However, that brings us to where the actual project stands, which initially was supposed to release in 2023 this year, and that's not, looking likely at all anymore. So let's dive right into this. So with the Acolyte series having issues after issues from Kathleen Kennedy, Disney higher-ups have been scrambling for a remedy on how to get things together for the production of the series. As of late, Lucasfilm has been running into some major issues with the Acolyte show for a number of reasons. Now, it's noted that just recently Disney ran into so many problems with the Acolyte that they are now dealing with a 6-month release delay and are being forced to cut back on a couple of episodes to keep things afloat. Now, originally the Acolyte was aimed to be a 12-whole episode series. This is no longer the case as of now after Kathleen Kennedy's list of reshoots and ongoing sets being taken down, costing Disney more revenue. Additionally, many parts to build some of these sets have been on constraint, resulting in lower quality scenes to be filmed than originally planned. Many part shortages resulted in physical sets being replaced with full-fledged CGI scenes, and Bob Iger has not been impressed in the slightest so far. This is why filming is expected to persist until sometime in May instead of March. So let me just stop right here for 1 second. Now, we know that the Acolyte is going to be all about the Sith infiltrating the Jedi Order. That's basically the baseline of the plot of the show that was provided by Leslye Headland and Kathleen Kennedy. The problem with this is that now they are facing making this show into a small-scale, indie-driven series, where it's going to feel lower quality, it's going to be very bare bones, and it really makes you wonder, how much action are we getting out of this show? What are the special effects going to look like? Stuff like that. The physical sets were supposed to be like the game changer for the Acolyte, and unfortunately that's no longer the case due to a lot of part shortages for developing these sets, and of course some pieces of supplies being on constraint. And that's a lot of problems, when it comes to the Acolyte as a show, because that's what's causing the 6-month plus delay. So it's likely you're not going to see this show, believe it or not, until spring of 2024 at the earliest. They're still filming this thing right now, they're doing a lot of reshoots. They're not going to wrap production up until probably by the fall, maybe the end of the summer of this year. And that really is a big setback. I remember months and months ago, they wanted to get this thing out by 2023. That just was not happening. We talked about this here many times last year, that the Acolyte was no way going to be released this year. Not a shot. And it ended up being the case. And here we are, it's getting delayed for the 3rd time. Now, that brings us to the next big setback. and a lot of it has to do with, of course, part shortages. Now, many part shortages resulted in physical sets being replaced, like I said, with full-fledged CGI scenes. However, with 2 whole months of reshoots and Disney letting go of some crew members earlier than expected, resulting in a more small-scale crew for the rest of filming, The Acolyte is leading into a more small-scale, lower-quality product with an indie film style. Writer Leslye Headland has been facing much stress over since the changes and constraints on set pieces and part shortages for building the sets properly. George Lucas has not been allowed to even visit the set once, since Kennedy and Lucas still hold a grudge against each other. Meanwhile, Lucas accessed the set of the Ahsoka series not so long ago for something very special. Not a big surprise, really, right, guys? I mean, the fact that they would not let Lucas join the set of the Acolyte to visit it and kind of overview things, it just goes to show you that the grudge between the two really runs that deep. Ever since The Rise of Skywalker's world premiere, George Lucas has not been invited by Kathleen Kennedy to anything, and or it did result in George Lucas refusing to go. He actually called the shots on not going to the world premiere for Episode 9, by the way. That was his decision. But The Acolyte, it seems like Kathleen Kennedy's, slapping back at George now by saying, he's restricted from the set, we don't want him here. We don't want anybody to kind of give us opinions on things or anything like that. That really is a one-track mind. Now, when you look at The Acolyte as a show, I've said this many times, it sounds great on paper, I'm not gonna lie. About emerging dark side powers, a mystery thriller. It sounds very dark and gritty and fun, right? But we gotta remember who's leading this project. It's Kathleen Kennedy, Leslye Headland, and a handful of other writers that are like mega Kathleen Kennedy fans, and let alone Leslye Headland fans as well. So it's going to be interesting in 2024 to see how this show performs. When you see Skeleton Crew arriving this fall, that's going to be a telltale of what The Acolyte is going to perform like on Disney+. Even though it's a very different plot, very different product, it's just going to show you what the leadership's going to be like. We know that Skeleton Crew has been the most toxic environment out of every single Disney Star Wars project since 2015, and that really does speak volumes. That just goes to show you that Kathleen Kennedy has very poor leadership skills, does not know what she's doing, and it's never really like she's in it for the art or in it for the lore. It's mostly just about in it for promoting an agenda or kind of aiming for skyrocketing ratings to really just bring in more subscribers onto the Disney Plus platform and to make these new fans that know nothing about the franchise and are going to be familiar with only Kathleen Kennedy's work. So anyways, I'm very intrigued to hear what you guys have to say about all of this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.